Hello, everyone. Welcome to the contributors meeting. I'm going to be your host today. I'm Leo, and starting off with triaging discussions for this week, we had Jan and Justin for doing triage. I see Justin in the call. I don't see Jan. Justin, anything to add? Anything you found this week?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't have a whole lot of time to go through everything, so I'm going to go ahead and do it again this week so I can dig in a little deeper.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so moving forward, we need to find who's going to be doing triage for next week. Any volunteers for primary and secondary? So I can do it next week. Any volunteers for secondary?
I was going to do secondary again, Leo.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Justin. All right. So moving forward, so Michael is not going to be able to join today. He has another appointment, but he added a few topics for discussion. And what he mentioned to me is if we don't reach an agreement, he will be okay to bring those next week as well, right? So the first one is about you open here real quick. It's about issue you opened, both.
Yeah, it's just to rename the master branch to main, which I think most projects have done already. GitHub has a pretty easy process to do it as well, I think now, apart from what I've mentioned there. I think you don't really have to change it locally yourself and then push it. GitHub makes it pretty easy to change the branch name, but of course, people might need have to do something locally to get sure it's working.
Yeah, I think every maintainer would have to update the branch, which is very minimal, very easy thing to do. The only thing that rings a bell to me is the last topic you mentioned here, the fix up CI, which might break. So someone would have to be assigned to double check everything is working as expected in our release process and in our CI process as well.
Yeah, that's probably the most critical bits, I would say.
Yeah.
GitHub usually makes things easier by sometimes redirecting master to main kind of things. I haven't checked it though recently because I think this is a pretty long time ago. That time we didn't have all those fancy things, but I think that's the bit that's probably worth checking the most.
Right. Okay. Any volunteers or any opinions on this task someone wants to bring up? So Michael was mainly asking to see if we're okay with doing, if someone has any concerns or think that anything else could break that could block this. Personally, I'm not opposed to this, but yeah, just go ahead.
Well, I'll go read the issue actually. Sorry. I was just trying to understand the motivation.
The automation?
The motivation.
The motivation, right. Well, it's mainly to to rename from master to main, right?
Yeah, I think if you, I'm just trying to think. Can you click on the link on the Argo project link on top? I think.
Sure.
You just is there something to do? Okay, no, I just maybe made a Uber issue there. But then I think in general, yes, I think there's been a general community-friendly practice about moving away from the term master to main. It's just mostly that. Besides that, there's no technical reason.
Right.
I think one other thing we might want to discuss is if people out there are pulling from the master branch, it may break their CI.
True, true as well. Yeah, that's a good point.
What does it do to forks? How does that work?
Trying to remember. I think for forks, I think forks wouldn't get disconnected from what I remember. It probably have to check this out, but they do not get disconnected. Like let's say if you have forked a repo on GitHub, GitHub still lets you have that sync mechanism. But then if you are on your Git CLI locally, you'd have to do with a git fetch upstream main and then do the merge later on. But then
I don't think it's an issue for fork, because when you fork a remote, right? You don't fork a specific branch. The only thing you need to do is to make sure, yeah, you point it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but I think the question is, it's let's say I have a fork already and I have a branch which is master. Now,
Right.
the remote no longer has a master. It is now main.
Right.
So I think for forks, you would probably get an error worst case that hey, there is no master in remote anymore. That's when you go in and look, hey, there is no master. And I think it's pretty well known right now that most masters have become main right now. So you basically rename your local. So basically you rename your branch locally in your fork, and then you push that to your local, and then you push that to your corresponding remote. And then you're again back to being in sync 100%. And this is all if there is no easy way for GitHub to just understand that master is made. Because GitHub typically handles such renames and migrations pretty gracefully.
I haven't tried it myself, but if what you said is true, the redirection should make things easier for customers who pull directly from our master branch if this redirection is in place. All right, so yeah, in order to start this work, someone needs to pick it up, basically. But personally, as a maintainer, I'm not opposed to this. Anything else, anyone? Okay, moving forward. Annotated tags commit shall not resolved properly. So this is an issue identified by one of the users, I suspect, related to multi-source, I think. Yeah, target revision, target revision, target revision. And basically what the person is saying is that there is a section in the code where we get a commit pointing to the head instead of honoring the target revision that was configured, and this is causing an issue. So it's probably a bug in the code, and he's saying, person is saying that if the community is okay, he would be happy to push a PR for fixing this. That looks pretty reasonable. There's nothing in this description that rings me a bell. I just answered to him saying that he could try to push a PR fixing this. Okay, I can reply later. I don't have to reply right now, but I'll reply back to him. Okay, so the other topic Michael wants to bring is delete namespace true. Suppose requested feature right now. So there's let's see, I haven't looked at it yet. Delete namespace created by create namespace truth. Oh, I see. Yeah. So the feature that we have to create namespace, when the application is deleted, it should also delete the namespace if it was managed. That's my understanding. Yeah, it would be great if the person was here to present the proposal. So maybe is the person in the call? All right, yeah, it's very highly voted, indeed.
Yeah, I think something would have to keep a record of the fact that the namespace was indeed created by Argo CD, which shouldn't be very hard looking at the annotations or labels. So,
Right.
yeah. But then like the sync process has to do this roughly, right?
Yeah, Argo City has the prune option, right? So by default, it doesn't delete things, but when you delete the application entirely, what you should do with the namespace is tricky because we could have more things living in the namespace that wasn't created by the application itself. So I think it's it's a little tricky proposal. I'm not sure if they're considering this. So let's say they created a namespace with Argo CD. So it was originally managed by Argo CD, but then someone else, some other team that shares the same namespace for some reason creates additional resource in a different application, which is possible. So when the first application is deleted, I'm not sure if we should bother with the entire namespace deletion, or at least at the very minimum provide a some message to the user saying, yes, this namespace doesn't have only the resource managed by this single application, but it has more resources. What do you want to do, right? So I don't think it's safe to just hit a flag and allow Argo CD to delete the entire namespace, because we might delete things that we shouldn't in some edge cases. I will read the proposal and add this this concern in the as a comment here. Does anybody else has any other concern regarding this?
There's something in the chat.
Do you hear me?
Chat.
Hello? Hello?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking because this was an outstanding task from managed namespace metadata, because this was something which we wanted to be able to display in the UI, but I'm wondering if we couldn't piggyback on that to be able to, like, if we add the typical managed, like the typical label or annotation on the namespace itself, then maybe that could be a part of solve itself, so to speak. But that, of course, needs a bit of testing.
Right, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think, but I guess my point is still true, because we can have additional resources in a given namespace, right? And then not sure if it's safe to assume that if it has this label, delete the namespace and don't look further. Yeah, I think the logic needs to be a little bit more conservative and check if the namespace has additional resources before going ahead and deleting it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, just to avoid, this hitting someone badly in the future and yeah, blaming the project for deleting things when it shouldn't, right? So that's my only concern with this. All
A
right.
create namespace equal to true is more of a helper convenience thing, I would say. So now that we have it, it does create a problem of hanging namespaces, but then deleting namespaces feels fairly risky to me,
Right.
without giving a lot of consideration. So I'd rather have hanging namespaces and have an external system do it, or if that external or if the user doesn't like hanging namespaces for obvious reasons, then I think the other alternative is to create the namespace with YAML in your GitOps repo itself. So that when you're deleting the application, the namespace also goes away. So
Right.
that's the alternative to ensure we are not left with those. But this is a helper method. It's a risk to stretch that helper thing into deletion space, which has other problems. So I agree with you that this needs further consideration.
Okay, cool. I'll add a comment here with some concerns that we're raising. Cool. All right. Anything else about this one? Anyone? I wasn't looking in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anand here. So can we have some kind of annotation to the namespace to say it's okay to delete as part of the application cleanup? Only then we will clean up the namespace.
Yeah, I think it needs further discussion. If we go that route, I think we would need this logic to validate if there is additional resource in the namespace before deleting it. I think
It's
it would be.
into the territory of namespace management altogether, I would say.
Say that again, sorry?
Yeah, we're straying into the territory of namespace management gradually. That does make me uncomfortable. But then you're right. We have to check if that's empty. And then when you hit delete, it might get scheduled for deletion, but actually not get deleted because of other finalizers around. So
Right.
that's those. Yeah. But I think we should definitely, and I think I'll add a comment. I think there are definitely workarounds to avoid this behavior. And that major workaround is to kind of not depend on this feature altogether. Create the namespace in the YAML as much as possible.
Right. Yeah. But I remember in the original ticket when community was pushing for having this feature, is because they didn't have the means to provide the namespace themselves. Like it was a Helm chart that they are creating. Right. So in this case, they want Argo City to help in some ways. So there are some use cases where this feature makes sense to be there. So yeah, now we need to think about how to properly address the deletion. Cool. All right. Okay, so no more topics. Does anybody has any last minute topic you want to discuss? Okay, if not, I will give you back a few minutes in your day, and I see you next week.
Thanks, Leo.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks. You guys.